Hi everyone, I want to talk to you today about being highly sensitive. A lot of us out there are highly sensitive. We're about 1 in every 5 people, so about 20% of the population consider themselves highly sensitive. And I've been talking about highly sensitive, but I didn't really explain what it was and what it looks like. So I wanted to kind of take a few minutes, explain who highly sensitive people are, what they look like, and give you a little bit of information to maybe help yourself if you are highly sensitive. If you're non-sensitive out there, that's okay too. With being 1 in 5 people, there's probably someone in your life that is highly sensitive, and this information could be useful to you as well. So when I say highly sensitive, what I am looking at is essentially people they almost have like I want to say a sixth sense, but it's not truly a sixth sense. It's like having extra sensitive hearing. People who have extra sensitive hearing may be able to hear things like dog whistles or that kind of thing. People who are highly sensitive can literally feel the world around them, and they do it in a slightly different way than non-sensitive people. So when you're highly sensitive, there are several things that we tend to look for to see if your high sensitivity is a part of your personality. Could it be an effect of trauma? What's going on there? So when you're highly sensitive, there are about 20 things that we look for as kind of a screener. And when I say we, the original guru on this, her name was Elaine Aron, and her information can be found at HSP Person, so it's hsperson.com, and I'll put that in the comments down at the bottom. With that though, highly sensitive people, like I said, tend to have an extra sensitivity around them. A lot of highly sensitive people describe themselves as empathic, so they can kind of feel other people's emotions around them. A lot of them describe themselves as intuitive, so they recognize how other people are feeling. And whether it's intuition as far as a psychic connection or highly sensitive because they have extra sensitive senses, who knows? But the point is there are quite a few of us out there. So to know whether or not you're highly sensitive, there's a quiz that you can take on Elaine Aron's, but I'm going to go over a few of those and talk with them. So one of the things that highly sensitive people tend to notice is their space. So whatever's going on in their space, if it feels chaotic or if it feels disorganized, fluorescent lights tend to bother highly sensitive people. If there is a ticking in the room, they may be picking up on that when other people can ignore it. So there's things that are happening in their environment that they're highly aware of. They're not only highly aware of themselves though, they are also those people that you sit in the room with and they're noticing that the light's hitting your eye or that you're feeling uncomfortable, and they're the person that knows exactly what to do to fix the environment without you necessarily having to say anything. So highly sensitive people are extremely aware of their environment. Loud noises can be a bother for them. Now, if you have a highly sensitive kiddo, loud noises don't start bothering them until after the teenage years, so you can't use that as a determining factor if you have a highly sensitive kiddo. Teenagers tend to like things loud. That's just part of the developmental phase that they go through. However, but when they hit about 20, they'll start to want their environment a little bit quieter. They may be annoyed when people try to get them to do too many things at once. They become easily overwhelmed. That also goes with startle reflex. Loud noises can cause a startle reflex for a highly sensitive person much quicker than it would for a non-sensitive person. Highly sensitive people also are really highly aware of criticism. When they get criticized, it cuts much deeper than a non-sensitive person. So as a child, a highly sensitive person may be described as too sensitive or extremely shy or, cries easily. All of those are things that are true about highly sensitive people. They are touched much deeper on they're touched much deeper on an emotional level. So they do tend to react to things much more strongly than somebody who is non-sensitive. That being said, even though they react stronger, it doesn't mean that they're totally emotionally vulnerable all the time. What it means is that they're processing it at a much deeper level than a non-sensitive person. Highly sensitive people, because they don't like the criticism and it cuts them much deeper than a sensitive person, they will also try to avoid making mistakes or forgetting things, because if they fear that inner critic and also the external critic, so they try to avoid that. Oftentimes, highly sensitive people will avoid violent TV shows. Again, it goes back into that feeling like they can put themselves in that other person's shoes and really know what that other person is feeling. So I'll give you an example in my own life. It's kind of funny. I consider myself highly sensitive. And in the 90s, I went to go watch South Park, the movie, thinking it's a cartoon, it's going to be gentle. Well, I have a really good friend who is a chef. And in the movie, they strapped Chef, if you're familiar with the character, they strapped Chef onto the front of the tank that they were in war with. And for me, I had nightmares over it, because I could put myself in not only the person's shoes, but also because I related it to my friend. So it sounds like a silly thing, but it's one of those things that highly sensitive people are extremely aware of their environment. It's extremely aware of the impacts on others. I become unpleasantly aroused when a lot is going on around me. Again, chaos, confusion can be really overwhelming, and you'll see a highly sensitive person usually begin to withdraw, and they'll try to kind of pull themselves away from the situation. This is true if you're in public places as well. Highly sensitive people can often pick up the energy, for lack of a better description, the energy of people around them. So when they're highly sensitive, if they're in a big crowded room and they haven't learned how to taper off some of that highly sensitive, they're picking up those feelings. And sometimes it can be difficult for a highly sensitive person to figure out, is that energy mine or is that someone else's? And the only way, especially when they're young, or they don't know that they're highly sensitive and haven't learned how to completely deal with it, the only way they can figure out if it's theirs or someone else's is to withdraw into a quiet space that there's nobody else with. So with that, highly sensitive people are often considered shy. About 2/3 of highly sensitive people consider themselves shy. However, there's about 1/3 that are extroverts. So just because you're an extrovert doesn't mean you're not highly sensitive, and vice versa. Just because you're shy doesn't mean you're highly sensitive. They can go hand in hand, but they don't always go hand in hand. So knowing what happens with a highly sensitive person is really important. If you have a highly sensitive kiddo, recognizing that just because they're highly sensitive doesn't mean they're shy. They can be extroverted, but but still be highly sensitive. Highly sensitive people also have a really strong and intense reaction to things that may not bother other people as much. So again, I told you, I describe myself as highly sensitive. If I get hungry, I am a witch. There is no other way to describe it. I am grumpy, miserable, and my level of hunger affects my mood much quicker than it does other people. So recognizing that if you're a highly sensitive person, physical reactions, things like hunger, lack of sleep, perfumes, any kind of scents that are unpleasant, those are going to affect you in a much stronger way than the non-sensitives in your world. So it can often seem like you're being a drama queen because you walk in a room and somebody's perfume feels like it's going to gag you. You're not being a drama queen. That's part of your high sensitivity. So being aware of that, it may not even affect any other people in the room. They may not even notice it if they're not highly sensitive, but that doesn't make it any less valid for you. So recognizing that your high sensitivity is around you all the time, and that it's a way that you process the world. And it's just like if somebody were blowing a dog whistle, using the dog whistle example again, but if somebody's blowing a dog whistle, it doesn't mean that you can't hear it. A lot of people who have extra sensitive hearing can hear that dog whistle, and somebody's consistently walking around the room blowing on it, it's going to drive them batty. Well, it's the same thing for you as a highly sensitive person with your senses. Even though other people can't hear it or feel it, doesn't mean that it's not happening. It does happen. And when you're highly sensitive, you're just much more aware of it. Changes in highly sensitive lives can often be a little more difficult for them to transition to. They have a little bit of a harder time dealing with major life changes because they feel it on such a deep level. So highly sensitives really feel things on an extreme level. And so knowing that a major changes coming up can be more anxiety producing for a highly sensitive because they get the depth of all the different things they're going to shift. They also, so a lot of times they will make a priority in their life to avoid upsetting or overwhelming situations or doing major life changes, or they hem and haw about making major life changes, because when they make major life changes, highly sensitive people are going to want to analyze it and overanalyze it and double check it and recheck it and make sure that when they make this decision, it's the right decision for them. They are often those people in your life, though, that are the first ones to be there if you need something, or they'll help you process through any major life changes that you are experiencing. So there's a couple different things. It sounds like sometimes when people are talking about highly sensitive that it's all negative. Well, it's not. There's a lot of positive sides to being highly sensitive. They are more aware of their environment, and so they have to be aware of what's happening in their world. However, the positive sides to that is that highly sensitives are also your most compassionate people. They're the ones that are going to kind of get down and dirty in the emotions with you and really take that time to figure out what it's like coming from your perspective. So they often make really good friends. At the same time, for non-sensitives, it can feel overwhelming to deal with someone who maybe gets grumpy when they're hungry, or can't watch very difficult shows like crime dramas or anything like that. Hi, Danielle. It's good to see you. I agree. Your entire family is highly sensitive. And I wanted to, so one of the things that with highly sensitive is being aware that it's really, really important to say things in a way that they can hear you and be a little more gentle. And I'm going to do this, and it might shock some of you out there, but for highly sensitives, you can go boo, and it's going to affect them much stronger than a non-sensitive, who you might go boom, and the non-sensitive is like, it doesn't even, they laugh. A sensitive, it might really startle and put into a much stronger reflex. So just being aware that highly sensitives need a much gentler touch than what would somebody who is non-sensitive need. This is really important if you're working with a coworker that's highly sensitive. If you have highly sensitive kiddos and you're a non-sensitive parent, then it's going to, for you, you might raise your voice and a non-sensitive kiddo wouldn't even faze them. When you have a sensitive kiddo, they're going to burst into tears and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't really do that much. They're being overly sensitive. Well, it's not. They're not being overly sensitive. They just process the world differently and they need a softer touch. That's kind of it on my summary of highly sensitives. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop something in the comment box. If you like this video, please feel free to put a like on it and share it. I would greatly appreciate that. And I hope to be talking to you soon. My plan is to do 3 of these. I plan on doing another video on highly sensitives, hopefully tomorrow, and then another one again on Saturday. My goal is to get 3 out. I'm not promising they will be 3 in a row, but my goal is to get 3 out, possibly 3 by the end of next week, but definitely by next Thursday. So I hope to talk with you soon, and thanks for coming by. Bye.